so much, Pooja, for introducing me. And thank you everyone for joining. Mostly, I think even if you are out of India, I think it must be Sunday morning or afternoon or evening, and spending your precious Sunday personal and me time attending my session. It means a lot to me. It also tells me how passionate you are as an educator, or at least to learn new things. Yeah. So I just feel this topic is very special because the mistakes I made as teacher, I don't want anyone else to make it, and it's always better to learn from someone else's mistakes also. You know, so that's why I will directly get into the topic. And I made, according to me, in my reflection, I made 7 mistakes when I was a teacher, and I just felt that we should all avoid making those mistakes. Okay. So the first mistake that I think any new teacher makes it, is, we worry too much. So I worried too much about being liked by my students. Okay. We want them to call us their favorite teacher. So my first year in the teaching field, back in 2007, I tried too hard to be a cool teacher, to be a popular teacher, to be their favorite teacher. And guess what? It actually caused a lot of discipline problems because I joked around with them. I considered them to be my friends. It only because I wanted them to like me, to think of me as an old friend or a cool teacher. But what I didn't realize at that time was they actually don't need more friends. They have plenty of friends in their classroom. But what they needed was for me to be a teacher. For what purpose I was there. So they wanted an adult who can guide them, who can, lead them. And leader sometimes had to be the bad cop or bad guy, so I could really help them, right? So, so that's how my first year went. Where I was trying to be a very cool teacher, and then I realized that it was causing a lot of discipline problems. So, second year of teaching came, and I still thought maybe I should continue in this field. And so I took an advice from a very experienced teacher who said one thing that really, got into my mind. She said, don't smile until after Christmas, which means if your academic year starts like in the month of June, then till December, you should not smile in front of children. You should absolutely not smile. So you should be someone who is very stern and very strict. So I decided to become that, that strict teacher who could stare a student to death, like, who could really, if the children look at me, they would be really scared. But what happened, like, I started being that person, but I couldn't do it because as a person, as my nature, I'm someone who loves smiling, who likes smiling at people. So I'm that kind of a person. So my message was very, very inconsistent. And again, my students responded by misbehaving half of the time because my messages to them were not consistent. I was smiling and I was trying to be very, very strict also. So after 2 years of my failure as a teacher, I finally sat down and I thought I need to really work on this, because if this continues, I don't think I'll be able to survive in the teaching field. So I listed out my biggest strengths and weaknesses as a person. And then I combined, 4 of my personal strongest assets and came up with a combination that worked for me as a teacher. So I actually started defining my persona. And I tried to communicate that to my students effectively. Because I decided on my persona, I defined my persona. Now I knew who am I as a teacher, who I was as a teacher. So how did I define my persona? So I wrote in my diary my strengths, my weaknesses, and I picked up 4 of my strongest personal assets, which I feel I couldn't compromise on, or I can't alter it. So I wrote in my diary about firm, like I am a firm teacher, but along with that, I'm also a professional educator who has high standards and expectations from my students. And my firmness, I clearly communicated to my children by saying certain things, certain rules that I will not tolerate or not compromise on. Now, I again wrote my another 2 personal assets of being a caring person and a compassionate human being. So I wrote down under my strength. The third one was I am inclined to use humor instead of threats. So I didn't believe in threatening children, but I felt that we should actually try and use more humor in the classroom. But even if I'm trying to be cool, if I'm trying to be humor, I am intolerant of rude and disrespectful behavior in the classroom. This was my third one. And the fourth one is that I am very, very passionate about my work and the subjects that I'm teaching children. And I'm really willing to meet the students halfway. Okay. But children should also be ready to come halfway. Okay. And that's when I realized that when I communicate these things to children very clearly, children were able to get the right message from me. Because I realized that classroom management is just not about having right rules, but it is also about having the right relationships. Okay. So how many of you actually want to build right relationship with your students? Please type right in the chat box. So I know that you want to become you want to have right relationship with your children, and then I will continue with my session. So do you want right relationship with your students? Patrick, are you raising hand? You need something? Or do you have any doubts? Okay, we'll move ahead. So yes, how do we create the right relationship with children? I always say to the teachers now that, invest. Yes. Did anyone say something? Okay. Invest in relationship building right from the beginning of the academic year. Nurturing in your psychological bank account with your students. Remember one thing very carefully. Listen to this very carefully. If you want, write it down. They don't care. They means children. So children don't care how much you know. Children don't care how much you know until children know how much you care. I feel this is such a harsh but such an important statement that children will not care who you are unless and until you care for them. Okay, so this doesn't mean that you should be friend and you should be buddy, but it does mean that you should treat each student with dignity and respect. Now, how can you do that? The first thing is to show genuine interest in the lives of children. If you get any time before or after some class, chat with them. Okay, make a list of the students you have in your class, and every day take one children to really chat with them. So for example, you have roll number 1, you have the first kid. Today, make sure that you spend at least 10 minutes with that child one-on-one, and do not talk about homework, do not talk about school, do not talk about why the child is not coming on time. Really talk about their life, what their interests are, what they like to do, who is there at their home, who are the family members, what do they like to do once they go from school. Really, being interested in their lives. And this message will actually tell them that you are interested in me, right? Second thing, when you are communicating with them. So when you make a list, so today if you have spoken to roll number 1, tomorrow go to roll number 2. Okay, so if you are able to spend time where you are able to do 2 children in a day, do that by all means. But this way, at least in a month you will be able to cater to all your children. Yeah. Next is when you communicate with them. Yeah, get onto their level. Okay, maintain the eye contact with them and then talk to them. Most of the time what happens is when children come and talk to us, either we are doing some work, okay, and we are looking at what our table and we say, okay, I'm listening to you, come, okay, talk to me, I'm listening to you. But you're not maintaining the eye contact. If I don't look at you right now, you will not feel connected with me. That's why I request everyone, if possible, switch on the videos, because it's so important to maintain that eye contact and connect with them before you communicate, right? So this is the second way you can build, invest in building relationship with your child. It's very simple. It is a case of you can pay me now or you pay me later. So you either spend some time now building a very mutually respectful relationship with me, or you spend your time later in a classroom power struggle. You have to choose. You have to eventually spend time. So if the first month of the academic year, you're not spending time in investing or building that relationship, children are not going to connect with you. And later on, there will only be classroom power struggles. Okay. So if you have made regular deposits to the psychological bank account of children, you can always make withdrawals when you ask students to comply to your demands. If you really invest the time to connect with them, trust me, they will start listening to you, and you yourself will have so much fun in your classroom. Okay. But having said that, there are some important rules that you need to make in your classroom, which cannot be broken under any circumstances. Okay. So this is the first mistake that I made, was worrying too much about being liked by the students in my class. But instead of that, I should have actually invested that time in building the relationship with them. Okay, so that is the first one. Second is, I did not reflect on my teaching or my classroom management. How many of you feel that self-reflection is very important? Just type yes or no. Do you feel it is very important to self-reflect? Very important, yes. Okay, very, very important. Why do you feel it is important to self-reflect? Why do you think it is so important? Where you are and where you went wrong. Yes, to understand better yourself, right? Where you went wrong. So my first 2 years of teaching were so frustrating for a variety of reasons. But one important thing I realized, that as a team, when I was working as a teacher, my team didn't have great reflection on the activities we did that year or the kind of lessons we did that year. And we ended up making the same mistakes year after year. And sometimes when we were doing some activity, we would suddenly realize, hey, we did the same mistake last year, but we've not even rectified it or modified it. And we are doing the same mistake again. So after terrible 2 years of teaching, I started reflecting on my own teaching and, classroom management. Because we all know that, teaching is one of the most meaningful careers around. However, it is also paid less. Teachers are not that paid well. Though we educate future doctors, scientists, and professionals, teachers are not paid well. So it's important that you do something that makes you happy. You cannot be struggling with your children and with your classroom and still also not get paid. Then you will not have any motivation to continue as a teacher. So that's when I realized that, now it's time that I reflect on myself, because it actually helped me recognize the progress I made in the lesson plans. Simultaneously, it also allowed me, to consider improvements that I could make. It is a very, very important, self-reflection is a very important part of keeping your teaching relevant to your students. That is important, because then, you can improve their focus, their learning, their engagement in your classroom. It also helps you keep up to date with the new practices and strategies, which might help you in getting your children's, student engagement higher in your classroom. So, how many of you want to become from a good teacher to a great teacher? How many of you want to become a great teacher by using the self-reflection? Type great, and I will tell you how we can reflect as a teacher. Come on. Yes, who wants to become a great teacher? Who wants to use self-reflection in the classroom? Type great. Lovely. I'm so happy, Pooja, to see such amazing participation from all these people. Thank you. So, I did reflection on 7 points, which I am going to share with you, and I'm sure it will be helpful to you. Okay, so the first point is that we need to reflect on is the ratio of interaction. This means we need to reflect on how much are children responding to you versus how much you are talking to them. Is there a dialogue of learning in your classroom, or it is just mainly, one-sided talking? How much are children actually talking in your classroom, interacting in your classroom, participating in your classroom? So the ratio of interaction. I just attended one workshop yesterday, and I came to know a very interesting thing, which I should share with all of you. The difference between a trainer and a facilitator. Okay, so basically trainer speaks 80% of the time and does activity 20% of the time. Okay, vis-a-vis a facilitator will speak only 20% but has more interaction and activities for 80% of the time. So now we need to decide whether you want to become a facilitator or just mere a speaker in the classroom who is training children. Okay, if you want to become a facilitator, you need to understand that your speaking time in the classroom should only be 20%. Rest 80% should be children doing activities, interacting, discussing, all of that. So first point is to consider the ratio of interaction. Second point to reflect upon is growth versus fixed mindset. How many of you know about growth mindset? Yes, no. How many of you have heard but not read about it or knows something about it? How many of you have heard of growth mindset? Yes, Aisha, you've heard about it? Nice. Fixed mindset is rigid? Yes, heard about it. Nice. Great. So the concept of growth mindset versus the fixed mindset was developed by Carol Dweck, and she wrote a book called Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. Right? We all have somewhere heard about growth mindset, and the whole concept says that how people with fixed mindset, who have fixed mindset, believes that their qualities are unchangeable, they cannot change their qualities, whereas people with growth mindset feel they can actually improve their qualities through effort, through practice. So the way you respond to your students can either inspire a fixed mindset or growth mindset. And that is what we need to reflect on. Now, let me give you an example. Praising students for being smart. Oh, you are a smart kid. Oh, you are a bright child. You are an intelligent girl. It's nice to praise children. But when you are using these terms like smart, bright, intelligent, beautiful, pretty, handsome, what are we doing? We are encouraging fixed mindset by commenting on their characteristics. Okay? Instead of recognizing that when they persistently work hard, it promotes growth mindset. So instead of, for example, when a child has finished a worksheet and the child has come to you, generally we say, oh, good job, you are a smart kid, you were able to do it, fantastic. Yes, it's a positive feedback, but it's not a growth mindset feedback. Instead, we need to appreciate the effort. So how do you tell the children that I am so happy that you put so much efforts to finish the worksheet? So you are not telling the child or giving the message that because you were smart or intelligent, you were able to finish the worksheet. Then it becomes your fixed mindset. Instead, when you say that I appreciate the way you put efforts in finishing that worksheet, you are giving the feedback that because the child has put so much efforts, the child was able to finish the worksheet. Okay. So, of course, I would suggest that observe your feedback, observe your interaction, and reflect on the kind of mindset that you have. Okay. So that's the second point for self-reflection. So the third point is consistent correction, which means, are you correcting your students consistently? Because what happens that if a child is making mistake, first time we will ignore, second time we will correct, again third time we will ignore it, fourth time we will correct it. So there's a lot of inconsistency. Instead, you need to correct them every time. Even if the child is making the same mistake for 5 times, you need to correct immediately for 5 times. Okay. Of course, correcting appropriately is also one of the things that you need to be aware of. You cannot be stopping your, what you are speaking on or what you are teaching and call out the child who is making mistake and, correct them. That's not the right way. But you need to be consistent in correcting them. So either, what are the ways in which you can correct them? So if you see that the child is constantly making the mistake, you can go up to the child and either be in the same area to give a signal to the child that you are observing him or her making mistakes or, not paying attention. Or you can just touch the child, pat the child without disturbing other children. Okay. So consistent correction. Make sure that you are consistently, correcting them without ignoring once and then again correcting it. Then, it doesn't work. Fourth, opportunities to respond. The fourth point to reflect is how much opportunities are you giving for children to respond? Are you giving your students enough opportunities to respond to what they are learning? And when I say respond to learning or opportunities, doesn't mean that only teacher is asking question and the children are answering. That's only one way of doing it. But even if when you ask children to discuss among themselves what they have learned, to share it with their partner or in a group, that is also one of the opportunities to respond. So when you want to understand whether the topic that you are teaching children have learned or not, there are different ways that you can give children opportunities to respond. One way is, of course, asking questions. Second way would be asking them to come and draw something on the board of what they have learned. Third trick would be think, pair, and share, which means you give one question to children, let them think, then pair it with their neighbor and then share it with their neighbors. Okay, asking them to share examples. For example, if you're doing something in geography where you are talking about a river or a country, if any child has gone to that country, why don't you, ask the child to share more about it? Yeah. So you need to reflect how much opportunities are you giving children to respond to what they are learning. That's the fourth point. The fifth point is the type and level of questions. Are you asking the questions that match the method of learning that you want to foster in your classroom? So the type of questions you ask your students in the classroom can include open or closed, type of questions, or opinionated questions, or right or wrong questions. So we need to reflect whether is the level of questions that you're asking appropriate for your students' level of learning. Okay, that's the fifth point. Sixth point is instructional time versus non-instructional time. So the more students are engaged in learning activities, the more they will learn. Obviously, if you are not right now engaged with me and you are surfing on your mobile, or just going through your Instagram feed right now, you won't be able to, you're not engaged, so you are not able to learn anything. Correct? So try to keep a track of how much time you give to learning activities compared to how much time is spent on other transitional things, such as handing out resources or collecting their work, or correction, all of that. So reflect on the instructional versus non-instructional time, because what happens is most of the time we are unable to give good amount of time in learning activities because we have like next period coming in, and a lot of the time is gone in transition from one period to another time. So we need to make sure that transitional activities are reduced and there's more learning time in the classroom. So that's the sixth point that you need to reflect on. And the seventh point is teachers talk versus student talk. Depending on the topic you are teaching, decide how much students should be talking about what they're learning compared to how much you should be talking to them. Okay, so these are the 7 points that every teacher should reflect on if you want to make sure that you do not make the same mistakes every now and then. Okay, so the first mistake, let me just revise. First mistake that I made was I was worried too much about being liked by the students in my classroom. And the second mistake was I did not reflect for 2 years. I did not reflect on my teaching or my classroom management. Okay, so is everyone with me? Yeah, can I go ahead? Yes. Okay, so the third point is I focused too much on students giving right answer instead of focusing on students' learning process. How many times it happened that when children are not answering correctly, we take it too personal because we feel that we have not taught them properly, right? That's why the child is not answering. Especially if your principal or your coordinator is coming to observe you and you are asking some question to the teacher, to children, and children are not answering, you get very scared because we focus too much on, students giving right answer instead of understanding their learning process. So initially I used to really just engage a student about the problem if they got it wrong. So if the worksheet, if they have made mistake, I would immediately go rectify it. Now, in the past couple of years, I started asking students to also walk me through what you did here. If it is a math problem, how did you reach this answer? Because I was very curious to know about their process, especially when I was teaching in grade 1 and 2. I would ask them, oh, how did you get this answer, in the math problem? Sometimes discovering that because I thought they didn't really know how to do the problem, but they were just lucky enough to get the answer right. So they didn't know the entire process. But what happened is students would actually get frustrated and said, "Oh, ma'am, I thought I got it wrong because you were asking me about it to, you were asking me, how did you get there? Even if my answer was right, because you were asking me about the process, I got very scared. Okay. I thought my answer is wrong." Yeah. So it's important to focus on their learning process instead of them giving just the right answer. Okay, that's the third mistake. The fourth one was, I'm not sure if everyone also felt the same way. I always thought that I'm not teaching enough. Yeah. During my initial years, I confessed it to the coordinator, to someone whom I was reporting, that I was afraid, that I wasn't teaching my students enough. So I explained further that I always believe that students should reach a minimum standard to achieve a passing grade, but that I wasn't sure where to set the minimum standard for my subject. So my mentor asked me, "What do you mean by minimum standard?" She asked me, "Minimum standard of what? Knowing ABCD, knowing numbers, shapes, colors, reading, writing. What is the standard?" And I actually admitted that I don't know, but I just worry that, I'm just feeling that I'm not teaching them enough. And in that conversation on that day, I learned a very important lesson, because she said, "You aren't teaching them ABCD, numbers, colors, shapes. You are not teaching them that." And I was very amazed. I'm like, "What are you saying? I am teaching them that." But she immediately said that, and I immediately asked her, "What am I teaching them?" And my mentor said, "You are actually teaching children how to analyze information and relate it to other information they already know. Then you are teaching them to put it together, take it apart, and then give it back to you in the form that you requested." And that is what application-based teaching or learning is all about. So we are not teaching them, different concepts, but what we are teaching them is to analyze information related to some information they already have about the topic, put it together, take it apart, and again, give it back to you in form of worksheet or answers, however you want it. So it doesn't matter what class you are teaching. We all teach them the same things. We just use different terms. Like English teacher uses nouns and adjective. Math teacher uses imaginary numbers and triangles. Yeah, but eventually we are just teaching them to analyze information, relate it, and use it. And one most important thing that we are actually teaching children is to believe in themselves. Yes. So do not get worried about that. Okay, I am not teaching my students enough. Okay, we are teaching way more than what is required, because we are not teaching them concepts. We are teaching them the skills they would need. Okay. And the fifth mistake, and that was a big mistake that I was making, I was gender bias while introducing certain topics. We don't realize that as adults, be it parents or educators, we are actually sowing the seed of gender bias right from early age. Yes. So, do you want your classroom to become gender neutral and free from bias? Type gender neutral in the chat box. I will take your question at the end of the session. Yeah. So do you think you want your class to be gender neutral? Do you want to know how can we all our classes can become free from gender bias? Yes, let's look at it. So let me ask you one question. If you are teaching EVS in your classroom, okay, if you are teaching them about my family, so what do we generally say? What is the role of a father, or what is the duty of a father? Answer, please type your answer. If I have to ask you, if you are teaching this topic, what is the role of a father, or what is the duty of a father? What do you tell them? Do you tell them that to take care of, to go to office and earn money for us? Yeah. And what is the role of a mother? To cook food and to take care of our house. Yeah. Right. So let's avoid teaching them the role of the mother is to cook food and take care of the family, and the role of the father is to earn money for the family. Because nowadays, look around, even mothers are stepping out, right, and working. They are also earning money for the family. And you also have parents like, who have fathers who are sitting at home and sometimes taking care of the children and the family too. Yes. So instead, just tell them that everyone in the family takes care of the house and takes care of each other. Yeah. And Aisha also said rightly that, whatever role they overcome, they should be respected. Yes, of course, and I'm not saying that it's wrong for mothers to sit at home, but that's why we should not make it very biased to certain responsibilities. So everyone in the family takes care of the house and takes care of each other. Okay. Next, how many of you use flashcards in your classroom? Type yes, no. For community helpers, especially community helpers. How many of you use flashcards? Yeah, flashcards are those pictures. For example, if you are teaching them letter A, then you will have apple and astronaut and alligator on it. Yes, pictures. It could also be pictures. Yes, we all use it. Now, think about your flashcard of community helper. Community helpers is a very important topic that is being introduced in EVS, right? If you actually observe your flashcards tomorrow when you go to school, the pilot is always a male and the teacher is always a female. Okay? Think, doctor is always shown as a male and nurse is always as female. Who observed? We've all done this mistake. I have done this mistake. And that's why I am just making it, open to everyone so that we don't make mistakes. So instead, show the flashcards with both the genders. Show a male pilot and a female pilot, because there are female pilots also today. There are male teachers also today. There are female farmers also today. So when you are showing any picture of any occupation, make sure that you show male and female both. Okay. Also, I'm not sure how many of you have seen this video of a girl. She was 5 years or 6 years old. It got very viral, asking her mom that why in the textbooks, why it is always called man-made structures and not woman-made structures. Yeah, it was a very valid point, and that made me think, yeah, we always say man-made structures. Instead, can we just say human-made structures? Why give a specific gender to it? Okay, it has to be gender neutral. Or even we always say Stone Age man. Okay, we do not say Stone Age woman. So can we just say Stone Age human? Yeah. Okay. So avoid using only man-made structures and instead use human-made structures. Most of the times, recollect, we all use fairy tales in our classroom. Yeah, Cinderella, Snow White, all of them. And most of the time, the beautiful girls are always portrayed as fair, slim. Yeah. And the bad girls are always portrayed as fat, dark, skin colored. Yeah, I'll give you an example. The Snow White, for instance, in one of the storybook is described as having skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. Yeah, so we are giving message to children that a girl has to be slim, has to have red lips, black hair, and only then she's a beautiful girl. Yeah. So instead, tweak the story, tweak the fairy tale that portrays all women are beautiful. Yeah. Be very mindful of the kind of description that you're giving in the story, especially when you're describing the character. Be very mindful of. Okay. Next, we generally, when children are fighting or boys are fighting per se, we say, boys, don't cry like girls, or don't fight like girls, come on. Yeah, these are very common statements that are being used in our regular conversation to pacify children. Yes, so avoid using such gender-biased statements like boys don't cry, or don't cry like a girl, don't fight like a girl. No, that's not right. Yeah. I mean, boys also do cry, right? Next, while introducing new authors and scientists and leaders in your classroom, make sure that you introduce both male and female to them. Okay, we tend to, I mean, unknowingly, this everything what I've told you about gender bias is very, very unintentional. It's not that we are doing it intentionally, but it is just how we are taught and we are teaching it further. I am only saying that we have to be a little more mindful of it. So when you are introducing new authors and scientists or leaders, introduce both male and female. Yes, so Aisha is saying not very true. Sometimes it is portrayed the other way around in some places. Some girls they portray them as they do not know. I really didn't get the statement properly. But yeah, I mean, and my only point is that we should not use such statements. I mean, even saying like, boys don't cry. I mean, why had any kind of gender or age to pacify children? Okay, let's go on to the sixth mistake that every teacher does, and we are literally petrified of it. It is avoiding to deal with parents. We are all petrified to deal with parents. When I began teaching, I was terrified of parents because I had heard all the horror stories of helicopter parenting, and I had also seen my colleagues into nasty confrontations. So whenever possible, I would ask other people to make my phone calls to the parents, or I would hid behind an email. Or sometimes if the parent has asked me to meet tomorrow, I would really have a very anxious night, secretly hoping that this parent should not turn up. The thing was that I was very new in the field and felt like that any clever adult might actually catch my failings instantly. And every accommodation I might have struggled with, or each lesson that was, worded imprecisely, and every project that could have been better differentiated to meet the specific interest and needs of their child. I was always scared of that that, okay, the parent might point out that this topic you could have taught in a better way, or, you could have given this project to my child. So in my eyes, I was potentially a bruised apple in a barrel, doing her best, but certainly not as shiny as the rest. So I hid and I just avoided dealing with parents. And this was the biggest mistake that I did. So the first thing that we need to understand is that your students' parents are also human, just like you. They are also humans. They also make mistakes. So having them as a part of your teaching team often means that, you will have better homework returns, or, child will be engaged more, as well as there will be more clarity on the goals and, expectations. And also, surprisingly, you will connect better with your student if you are part of their family or part of their team. Because we should not forget that eventually the goal of a parent or a teacher is the same, that you want to help the student, right? Maybe our methods or the approaches are different, but eventually your goal is the same. So when the goal is the same, why not work together? Yeah. So consider parent as a partner. And I just changed my game. Initially, I was very scared. Anushka has seen me. She was in my team, that how petrified I was. But whenever parent has a problem and parent is coming to meet you as a teacher or a school leader, the first thing I allowed them to do was to just say what they want to say without any interruption. Without any interruption, because we need to understand that they also do not have a listening ear. They need someone to just listen to. Okay? Because once you allow them to just say what they want, you will realize that they will calm down and they will be more open to listening to your suggestions. Okay? And never point out. What happens is, most of the times, school and parent, there's always a blame game. The teachers will say that because your child is not sleeping, at night on time, morning, the child is not fresh. The parent will blame the teacher that you are not making the lesson very interesting. So we have to stop, at least from our end, if we want the parent to become our partner, we have to stop blaming them. And we need to understand, okay, oh, your child is not able to sleep on time. Is there any issue? Can we work it out? Do you want to discuss on that? That would be a better way to approach, instead of saying, because you are not making your child sleep early at night, the child is not fresh the next day. Okay, so do not hide from dealing with parents. Make them your partner, and you will have really wonderful years with the entire year will go beautifully if you are confident of your work and if you are honest. Okay. And the last mistake, the seventh mistake that I was doing as a teacher, and which we all do it, is taking the ideas directly from internet. Okay. So what we do, we Google the worksheet or the activity or the craft that we want, and we immediately same to same apply in our classrooms. For example, I'll give you, if you are doing a topic of trees or plants, and you have some leaf activity. Okay, I have also done it, and I still see many teachers doing. We use the picture of the leaf, those maple leaf, or we do a craft of that maple leaf craft, which Indian children do not see it anywhere. Right? So you can take the same craft, you can do the same activity, but instead of maple leaf, select the leaf that is available in the surrounding, which children are able to see and connect and relate immediately. Right? I remember also doing this. I think I was doing the concept of community helpers, and I was teaching them policeman and what is the emergency number. And I was in an Indian school, right? I was in India teaching in an Indian school, and I actually taught them the emergency number of US police instead of teaching them 100. We all make these mistakes, right? We've all done this because we don't think about it. We've just taken it from internet. Yeah. So it's amazing to always take ideas from across the world, but it is very important to connect it with the children. Where you are teaching them, right? If you are in India, you have to teach them the Indian emergency number. If you're teaching in a school in Dubai, you have to teach the number of there. So you take the idea, but implement it where, or, tweak it a little bit as per your surroundings. Yes. So these were my 7 mistakes that I made. And now I want all of you to tell me if you are making any of these mistakes, or are there any more mistakes that you are making and you would like to share with everyone, because it's only learning from each other. Today I am sharing my mistake, and when you share your mistake, and I would be like, oh, I'm also making this mistake, right? So type if, or you can even say it out. Anyone, you can switch on the videos if possible and share some mistakes that you've done from the 7, or any other mistakes that you would like to share with all of us. You can type it, or you can switch on your mics. I would love to hear.
Greshma, I must say that it was amazing to hear, and I was reflecting many actions of mine, while listening to you. I think Aisha have something to share. Aisha, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Hi, thank you so much. It was a very lovely session. Very lovely. And by the way, I was just a part-timer. I just used to do it direct with AS levels and O levels, because I happened to study from the Cambridge Cambridge Medium School. So basically, I used to do it like a part-timer. They used to come at my place, and it was very direct, because I have no responsibility, because I'm not in the premise, So it was very direct, just to help them get through the IGs, help them get through the AS board, and how you can tell them to actually what is very important, and how you can get A's or B's or something like that. But this session was absolutely very beautiful, because it teaches us that how you can really create that environment and self-reflect on it too, because even teachers or as parents, I'm not a parent yet, but I can understand that it is difficult, but then you have to give your all together, and self-reflection is very important. The thing that you did not understand when we type in, it was like in some places it's the other way around. If you are a bit nice or good looking or something like that, they take you as the opposite way, that maybe they do not know, maybe they don't seem like they judge the book by its cover, right? Which is not very good. So you have then at times they go through, they simulate them, or probably they test them if they really are what they show. So that's very off-putting sometimes. But all the mistakes, and I wouldn't say mistakes, but all of the assessment that you shared with us, thank you very much. And it was very lovely to meet you.
Thank you, Aisha. Lovely. Thank you for sharing your point, because when you are from different country, there are different things that you observe, and that's why sharing becomes so important, because today I also got to know the different perspective towards the point that I was sharing. So thank you so much for sharing it openly. And Deborah also has written that I make the first mistake of worrying too much if the learners would love me. I also make the mistake of showing my frustrations in the classroom, especially when I feel they don't seem to understand your lesson. Yeah, thank you so much for confidently and very openly telling us your mistake. I really, really appreciate it. So anyone else would like to share, and then we can wind up the session?
I have something to share.
Yes,
First of all,
Anushka.
much for the session, Ms. Greshma. I really enjoyed it. It was like having one of the school meetings.
Yeah.
My ex coordinator in school, my head. So that's how I relate so much to Miss Greshma. One mistake, I actually made almost all the mistakes and still keep doing it. Even though we keep getting trained in school, we tend to unknowingly make the same mistakes and again and again. One mistake I commonly make is if there are few children answering in class, we tend to look at only those children when we are talking or when we are teaching a topic. And that I think shouldn't be happening, because all the children are coming to school to learn, all the children are equally important. So I think we should stop making that mistake in class, when only few picked hand children are, we teachers think that I think only these children are learning, so might as well look only at them. Especially when observations happen, we tend to look only at these certain children because we know that these children will answer in class. So I think that is a very, very bad habit, and we need to stop that immediately.
Yes, thank you for sharing, Anushka. Yeah, so Anushka and both of us were working in the same school, and we did have a lot of discussions and meetings. So I think she could relate to my points very much. But yeah, thank you for sharing, because yeah, we've observed this, that most of the time we pick. So we tell them a question, we ask them a question, and we say, okay, who knows the answer? Raise your hand. And then we pick only those children who have raised the hand. But we've always heard about backbenchers, right? That there are some children who will know the answer but are not confident enough, to answer or to raise the hand. So as a teacher, we need to understand. That's why giving them opportunities to respond in a different ways. So sometimes could be just shout out, come, every lot of all of us will shout out the answer together. Sometimes instead of asking children to raise hand, why can't we ask particular student to answer? So thank you for sharing, Anushka. And we had someone, Kritika said, though I joined the session late, but I enjoyed it a lot and I'm looking forward to upcoming sessions. Thank you, Kritika. Ogechi Anuka. I hope I pronounced your name right. Sorry if I have mispronounced. My mistake was expecting all my children to learn at the same time. I put a lot of pressure on them and ended up getting disappointed when some don't do as well as others. Yeah, that is also such a valid point. So I will add this point also next time for teachers, and what Anushka also mentioned, I would, also add it. Yeah, because we expect, I think all teachers, we expect that if I am teaching the topic today, they should all learn today only, right? But everyone learns at their own pace, and that's why one topic should be introduced in different ways, sometimes through story, sometimes through game, sometimes through group activity, sometimes through worksheet, whatever works for you. So out of 5-6 activities, at least the child will pick up from one activity, right? So thank you, Ogechi, for sharing your experience and the mistakes that you do. Akhil said, I was making mistakes every day, but it should not be repeated. Yeah. So that's why once you are aware of your mistake, we will avoid making it again. But most of the times, it's just that we are not aware of our mistakes because we are either not reflecting or we don't have anyone to point it out to us, so we make the same mistakes every now and then. Yeah, so I think, Pooja, we've come to my presentation is over.
Yes, I think I would like to add this one point. I think when I was student and even when I started teaching, I have experience this and many times in class. We take things to ego, and in classroom we are hesitant to accept that we have made a mistake. And this in initial days, even I used to do this, but now I upfront accept it. Oh, okay, that was a mistake. And if any student presents completely different perspective, and we, I have seen many teachers go on arguing.
Yeah.
And yeah, not accepting, though you completely agree from inside that you know that it is right, and but you do not want to, you feel that you are failing in front of the student. And I think, that is one thing many of us need to be addressing. There are many teachers here. What do you think? This is I think one of the learnings in my experience.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we should, I will also observe that many a time when the children are asking questions, which is out of the topic, and if you don't know the answer, we become very scared. We shouldn't be scared to tell them, okay, I don't know this, but I will check it out tomorrow in a book or on internet and revert on this tomorrow. It's absolutely fine. It's always better than giving some, wrong information. So accepting your mistake also is important, because you are also teaching children to say sorry, right? Unknowingly. See, you can preach them that, okay, say sorry. But if the child is watching the teacher say sorry for the mistake, you are imitating you're being the right kind of model for them. Next time you will not have to tell them to say sorry, because they've seen you telling sorry, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
yes, everyone, thank you so much for staying back. And thanks a lot, Greshma. Such a wonderful session and a lot of learning. Hope many things we are yet to correct, and we do that. And
yes.
thanks a lot. I just hope to see you again and again on weekends. And everyone, every weekend we'll have 1-2 hours or 1 hour session on different topics. So you can either subscribe the channel and join their live, or join me live on Zoom, so that you can interact more. Thanks a lot. I have shared Greshma's whole social media profile links, so you can get in touch with her. And if you want, I think beginning of the session I shared, I'm sharing it again, so that you can get connected with Greshma. Just a second. Yeah, here it is.
Yeah. So that's my profile. You can get in touch with me. I am on LinkedIn. I am on Facebook and Instagram. You can, by all means, anytime you feel stuck as a teacher, as an educator, feel free to get in touch with me. Okay. Thank you so much, Pooja, and all of you join today for my session. And I was very honored to have such a diverse, participants today. I feel very nice when you have participants joining from different countries, and you have a lot of sharing and a lot of learning happening. So thank you so much, and have a great weekend, all of you. Hope to see you soon and meet you soon. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.
Have a
Bye.
great
Thank you so
weekend.
much.
Bye, Anushka.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.